Fantastic. All righty. So good morning, everyone. As people are joining and coming in, thank you very much. We are starting 5 minutes earlier, or 4 minutes. Benny and I have been chatting so like lovely and nice and lekker that we did not see the time. Anyway, so we're just giving people time to come in. I see we're coming in droves. So thank you very, very much for joining us today for our new day of CPD format. In the past few years, it was part of the Global Financial Planning Conference. From this year onwards, it's a completely separate series of events that we are hosting. And what's just important for me is why are we doing this? Why are we putting together the day of CPD? Because we don't do CPD just for CPD's sake. What's important for us is that we see since the beginning, since 2017, there has not been a year that people have not come to the end of May and go oh my word, I still need a number of points. And what we're trying to do through 4 events is to take mainly half a day, a little bit more than half a day, but do it live only. So there's no other means. So there's no recordings, no nothing for these sessions, because we want people to go through the process and earn their CPD by the end of February already. So if you stick with us and you join all 4 events, you will get to that 18 points or very, very close to it. But the way we've structured it, if we keep the structure the same every year, or for every session rather, we will get to the 18, because today is approved for 4.5 CPD points. You get ethics and practice standards, you get technical and general points today. And we are going to try and repeat that throughout the other 3 events that's also coming up. So that's really the intention behind it. We want to make it easy for you, but also we want to bring valuable CPD to you, not just CPD for CPD's sake. We want to bring you content that's really different from many other places where you might consume CPD as well. So thank you very much for being here. I want to say a big thank you to our sponsors and you'll see some of them, a little bit more about them throughout the morning. But they've made it possible for us to have this very first one with our compliments. So we're not charging for this event. The remaining 3 events we will be charging a nominal fee for. So just note that. But this first one we are doing with our compliments and with the support of our sponsors. So thank you very much. The first of which is on this morning is Bennie Gouws and Asset Map. So thank you very much, Benny and Asset Map. You're involved in every single thing we do this year, and I deeply appreciate that. So thank you so very much for that. Alrighty, so we've got a minute left until I have to hand over to Benny. So how is this going to work? So you'll see that you got an email with 6 links. So every session is a different link. So there is a bit of time in between some of the sessions, and some of them don't have much time in between. So as soon as we're done with Benny's session, I will thank him and we'll end the session. We'll jump on to the next link. We've numbered them for you in the email, session 1, session 2, and we added the times as well. So please then join the next webinar, then where we will have our next topic and our next guest speaker. So fantastic. Thank you very much. On that note, I want to say, Benny, thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to you. But before I do, I just want to play a brief little ad from Asset Map.
Say goodbye to intimidating, bulky financial reports that just confuse your clients. Say hello to Asset Map, the leading financial planning software designed to simplify and improve your client conversations. Get started with Asset Map today. We're reimagining the planning process, helping you deliver advice with speed, confidence, and credibility. Asset Map, empowering better financial decisions.
Fantastic. So on that note, Benny, I'm going to hand over to you. If you've got any questions or anything, please post them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on the chat. Also, there's a Q&A. If you've got questions specific for Benny, please post them in the Q&A or at least in the chat. Just put question in front of your question so that we know it's a question. It'll make it easier. And thank you for saying hi. I wish I had time to say hi to every single one of you. But Benny, over to you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Francois. Morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be with you today. It is bucketing down here where I am, so apologies if there's noise in the background, but I hope everybody's warm and safe because of all the inclement weather. Yeah, we're a proud sponsor of Propulsion this year. So I want to, well, let's start by sharing my screen. I don't talk too much nonsense. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we call advice engagement. But I want to jump straight into, is it worth your time to watch the session? Or can you sort of start looking at emails and take phone calls? So I want to just right up front tell you what's in it for you today. Now, there's a blind spot in the industry. And similar to when you drive your car, I mean, I think most of us are aware how it works. There's a blind spot outside of your vision. And sometimes we know there's a car, but we're not sure. And the only way to see the car is to look. And that's what we're going to try and do today. So listen, is there a blind spot? What is this blind spot I'm talking about? And how do we see it? And the next question would be, well, is it important? Now, what you'd be surprised to know is that this blind spot reduces your income by at least 30%. And I know some of you are really successful, and so money maybe is less of an issue, but it directly negatively impacts how your clients view you and the trust that they put into us as a profession. And so I think it's a real issue. But of course, let's see. I want to start with this point. When I started in the industry 20 plus years ago, you know, we were just starting to figure out this thing about, is financial planning valuable? And I mean, as you know, in the last 20 years, we've got a really long way towards working that out. So we're much clearer on the quantitative aspects. So in other words, that like Gamma and the Morningstar study, so we can work out the quantitative value of using a financial advisor is 1.75%. And then we know there's all the qualitative aspects. And I remember when I started, I think at that stage, there was 8 behavioral biases that we could identify that impacts client decisions. Now I think it's 250 odd behavioral biases. And so clearly we've answered this question. Financial planning adds lots of value, but you're going to see that little asterisk, because I think if we leave it here, we're missing the most important part of, is financial planning valuable? And so that's what I'm going to talk to you today. And fortunately, you don't have to trust me, because we're very logical and analytical as financial planners. We're going to look at the data. What does the data tell us? And I'm going to take you through the study that the FBA conducted. That's the FBI in America. They issue the CFP designation. And it follows on from a study in 2006. And the 2006 results were weird. And people were saying there must be a mistake, something. Either the sampling size was wrong, or the questions were wrong, or the people that did it didn't know what they were talking about, or maybe financial planning was so new, it skewed the results. So the FBA said, listen, let's do a comprehensive study around one simple question. And that question is, do planners and clients, how do they view the effectiveness of our client engagements? In other words, our planning meetings. And they were very specific how they're going to measure it. They're going to measure around what they call communication topics or content. In other words, what are we talking about? Can we communicate if we're talking about investing or saving or estate planning? How knowledgeable are we that we can communicate that knowledge to a client? The second thing, they want to measure what our view and our view of our clients are of the process of communicating that knowledge. And the third thing is, what are our communication skills to involve the client in that conversation, make it meaningful for them. The study is a massive study. You can just Google it, FBA client communication. You're welcome to go through it. I want to just spend a few minutes on sharing with you how they conducted the survey, because it's very important that I'm going to show you the results, And I don't want you to sit there and go like, ah, this doesn't apply to me. You know, like, you know, they must have made a mistake. So I'm going to tell you how they conducted this research. So the first thing is they went to all the CFPs in the United States and they said to them, we're going to do this big study. It's onerous and it's going to involve your time and we're going to talk to your clients. And so the net effect of that, about 354 CFPs then took part in the study. Now think about that. Who would be that 354? And I can tell you now, I mean, you can look at the demographics in the research, but the reality for me is it's the kids in the front of the class. It's not going to be the guys at the back. You know, so I'd say that 354 are representative of good financial planners that do a good job. They do their CPD points, they follow the 6 steps, etc. The second thing that's important is how they selected the clients. So it's not a random selection. They asked the planners to nominate the clients based on clients that they regularly meet with. So immediately that cuts out, like, let's call it C and D clients. And so this was a combination of A and B clients in my view. And on top of it, you're not going to include, if you think about it, if somebody asks me, I'm not going to include the clients that I don't have a great relationship with. So there were thousands of these clients, they're A and B clients, and they had a good relationship with their advisor. The third thing why I think we have to take this result seriously is because the FBA don't want to look like, I mean, they don't want to give the profession a bad name. So if anything in the results, they thought, like, listen, that doesn't look right, I promise you they would have pushed back hard. Okay, so I think, and I mean, this is important that you think about, will I trust what the numbers and what the data tell me? In other words, am I going to say, listen, there is potentially a blind spot here? So ask yourself, and we're going to go through some of the study findings. Now, how they conducted the study is a 5-point scale. So you have to say that they give you a statement for the advisor and for the client, and you have to say, I strongly agree, I agree, I don't have a view. In other words, I don't know, I disagree with the statement, or I strongly disagree. Now, they didn't give us all the results, but what they did is they gave the results of where of the percentage of respondents that agreed, or like somewhat agreed, or strongly agreed. Okay, so I'm going to go through this, and I want you to play with and put numbers in your head. Do you agree, like somewhat agree, or strongly agree? And what do you think your clients would respond? So the first question, they ask the planner and the clients, does the planner communicate the recommendations in terms that the client can understand? Okay, 84% of advisors agreed. Again, I mean, I'm not sure why all these numbers aren't 100%, but most advisors say they agree that they clearly communicate recommendations to a client. Clients, 51% of clients agreed. Now, I just want to put, I think this is the most positive way one can reflect the results, but I just want to make it clear, in case it's not obvious, that this means that 49%, half of clients said that they don't know, or they disagree that we've clearly communicated our the recommendations. I mean, so that's not good, in other words. If you think these numbers are good, they're not. Okay. Second one, planner gives the client, and there's 9, I picked out 9 ones, they're all very similar, but I thought these 9 stood out as quite interesting, but the numbers across the board are the same. So the planner gives the client as much education as desired. 83% of advisors say yes. Clients, 47%. So again, more than half of clients said we don't offer them as much education as they'd need. Another classic one, planners open to discussing what the clients value most. 87% advisors, 50%. So half of these A and B clients of good financial planners said, my planner is not open to discussing what I value. And then we can go on. Planner recommendations are based on the client's personal goals, needs, and priorities. Again, CFP, again, I don't know why that number is not 100%, but advisors saying most advisors agree they base their recommendations on the client's goals, needs, and priorities. 49% of clients agreed. Planner communicates the importance of considering all aspects of life and creating a financial plan. So in other words, we look at all aspects, 81% of advisors, 47% of clients. Okay, another classic. Planner regularly contacts the clients. Now remember, they also have to do annual reviews. And so clearly the advisor will say, yes, we do that. 39% of clients agreed with that. That means 61% of clients did not agree, or they couldn't agree with that statement that they are regularly contacted about changes in their life. Planner helps clients identify meaningful personal and financial goals. 87%, 49%. Okay, so what the clients are saying, you're not like my planner is not identifying meaningful goals for me. Okay, planner works hard to ask questions. In other words, do we put an effort to involve the client? 43% agrees. And you're going to love this one. Planner restates, in other words, we summarize the factual component of the meetings. And I mean, remember, we spent all those hours doing reports and summaries and emails. Only 43% of clients agree with that. Because that means 60% of our clients do not feel that we condense the factual information in the meeting in a way that they can digest. Okay, so this is not good. And if I can put it in, that's enough numbers. So I'm not going to talk about numbers anymore. So I'm going to put in a picture. Okay, so this is a cartoon from the 1980s. There's an old desktop computer. And here's the financial advisor. They're sitting with, you know, the 30-page financial plan or the quotes or the, you know, investment analysis, etc., etc. And here are the clients. In Afrikaans, we say, hulle sit down with a bag full tande. Okay, so in other words, the clients, you know, they're not engaged. You know, in other words, they don't know how to contribute. And you know the signs. You know, the eyes glaze over. They ask what we think is a stupid question. We on page 3, they're already on page 7 of the reports, etc. Okay, so this is just in a picture format that there's a problem here. We are very, very knowledgeable. Financial planning is very, very valuable. But I want to rephrase that. So yes, financial planning is valuable to the extent that our clients engage with it. In other words, we can be the smartest financial planners in the world. If our clients don't feel it and they don't experience it and they don't engage with it, in a way, it's a waste of our energy. Okay, so it's not about, the question is no longer about, is financial planning valuable? Is how do we get clients to experience that it's valuable? Okay, so I think that's the blind spot and that we need to shift. So I want to talk, okay, enough about research and all that stuff. So I want to talk today and say, listen, let's see if we can turn our head and look a bit into what is this blind spot? You know, we know it's there. You know, like every time I speak to advisors, you know, we know that there's a gap in our client understanding. But I want us to just take a bit, like a look at that. We're only going to talk the basics today. In fact, I don't think I'm going to even get through the presentation. There's so much. But I just want to talk through the basics, just that we get a sense of what is this gap, and start getting a feel around it. Now, there are more CPD days, so today we're going to talk about the basics, and then the next sessions we're going to go on to the more intermediate and advanced elements of what we call advice engagement. Okay, so today, just about awareness. Do you have a blind spot? How would you spot it? And how do you start thinking about changing that blind spot in your practice? Okay. Now, often when I have this conversation with advisors, they'll say, Benny, my advice engagement is brilliant. I don't have that problem. And then when you dig beneath the surface, they'll say, I don't have that problem because I've got an excellent client experience. Now, client experience is super important. A guy, Orwell, I know, is very passionate about this, and he's doing a lot of research and talks about this, which is very valuable. So client experience is really important. Okay. You know, we've got to make the client feel at ease. It opens them up, etc., to make the conversations easier. But we're not talking about, but that's not advice engagement. Advice engagement is engaging around the financial planning. Okay. The second objection, and you must think about what your objections are. Advisors will say, Benny, it's not a problem for me because I've got excellent client relationships. Yeah, I do golf days. My clients invites me to christenings and weddings and etc. Okay. Again, really, really important that we've got good, solid relationships with our clients. We've got to be able to relate to each other. I mean, that makes the relationship much easier. That's why sometimes we have two advisors with couples, so one relates more to one to the other. The point again is this is important, but it's not saying anything about how the client engages with your value, the value around financial planning. I love this one. I met a crowd the other day and they said, Benny, you don't know what you're talking about. We do very sophisticated financial planning. Now, I hope so. I hope we all do good, solid financial planning. I don't know if I'd call it sophisticated, but we do solid financial planning. So I've got no doubt about that. We do, I mean, you know the importance of doing that cash flow analysis. Don't just do the implementation. You know, I mean, I don't have to preach to you. You guys know this. But again, spending those hours doing the financial planning is not the same as delivering it. Okay, so there's a difference in other words, doing financial planning is not advice engagement. And then this is like a touchy subject because I know many practices have spent a fortune in terms of money and effort to really get good client reporting out. So in other words, quarterly statements, monthly statements, sometimes even updated values, email, online, etc. Again, very important. There's nothing wrong with that. That's excellent, but it's not engaging the client. In fact, we know that because everything tells us most clients do not read their reports, and most clients do not log onto the online portal unless we force them to go and sign something. Okay, so that's not advice engagement. It's important, but it's not advice engagement. And so the point I want to make here is we're not going to solve this by pushing more stuff onto the client. So writing longer reports, more detailed graphs, more detailed analysis, more client days. It's not going to help us with that blind spot. And I just added in this, getting the client to sign a disclaimer. I've got to share this. You're going to love this. In the UK, there's now legislation. It's called the Consumer Duty Act, where you are forced, where the law says to advisors, you have to make your advice understandable to clients. Okay, it's a law. You've got to make it understandable. They don't say how, but it's a law. And so the one compliance officer said, oh, well, it's very easy. What I'm going to do and recommend to all my advisors is that they have a letter at the end of every meeting. They get the client to sign. I understood everything that the advisor told me. And then there's space. If there's anything I didn't understand, I can list all those things that I didn't understand. It's a terrible idea. Okay, so we can't disclaim our way out of this. All right, so that's the objections out of the way. I'd be interested to know if you can think of others. There are others. Okay, but let's leave it at that. Okay, so what is advice engagement? What is this thing that we're talking about? And I could sort of summarize it as follows. It's around, it's that idea of presenting a financial plan, which I think is actually the way it's worded in the 6th step. We're going to present a plan. And what we're saying is that is not engaging. Us feeding back to the client. And so we call it participation. We want to do participation rather than presentation. And so the components around that, if we have to sort of come up with a little definition. And remember, this advice engagement, the category didn't even exist a year ago. We only figured out a name for this a year ago. And so there's no official definition. This is our definition. And please, if people have got suggestions how to improve this, please. I mean, this is an industry-wide issue. It's got nothing to do specifically with AssetMap, although it's very passionate about this. But we've got to start making this more visible in the industry, this blind spot. Okay, so if you've got suggestions, then let me know. All right, so this is my definition. The first thing, it's clearly because of participation, it's collaborative. Okay, but there's a second word there, it's a process. And so what we mean by that, it's not that we can't make things up on the fly. And I'm not talking about we've got to be like robots like that, but what I say is we've got to follow a framework or a process that for every client conversation, we know we're within that framework, and within that framework, we can be, responsive to the client and change tack and all of those things, but it's got to be within a process. We can't just, try and ad hoc our way out of this. So when we talk about advice engagement, you need to have a process that you're going to take your clients through. The second thing is that advice engagement is about financial planning. Okay, so for example, investment feedbacks or market economic overviews, or that stuff is useful, but it's not advice engagement. The client could go and Google that stuff. Okay, so advice engagement is the planning. It's where we engage in planning. The reason we do the planning is because we want the client to get to understand something so that they can make an informed decision to improve their financial situation. Okay, so you can see advice engagement is not engagement for the sake of talking. It's advice engagement to get the client to take a step forward. And at AssetMap, we're very clear on every client meeting. Every client meeting, we want the client to walk out the door having taken one step forward. So we don't really subscribe to this. Let's do a review meeting to review stuff. We want to add some. It could be a small thing, but we've got to add value in every single time that we engage a client. When we phone a client, what value are we adding with that phone call? And lastly, and really important, okay, we want to engage the client that they can understand our value, like your specific value, not general financial planning value, or this is what I Googled, or ChatGPT told me this or something. Your advice. In other words, if you do these first 3 steps, if we do them properly, clients are going to say, listen, my financial planner is awesome. I understand remember all those questions. I understand he takes into account my priorities, he takes into account my situation, etc., etc. So it's the value of your, I should have probably bolded that, the value of your advice. In other words, if your clients say to you, Benny, I trust you, but I don't understand, then something's wrong, then we're not doing this correctly. All right. Now, the question now again is, well, is it important? Does it matter whether my clients understand or not? Okay, because we've been doing it for, 20 years plus, 30 years, some of you, doesn't make a difference. Okay. Now, this is the research that 2022 paper. The reason why they did this research is because they link it directly to whether our clients trust us and their level of commitment to their financial plan. Okay, so in other words, if our clients don't understand, it erodes trust and it erodes their ability to commit to that financial plan. Okay, so first of all, it's important from a reputation perspective. Your like our reputation. Do my clients trust me genuinely? Not they trust me because I've got a qualification. They trust me because they feel they can understand their financial plan. Okay, so that's the first reason why this is important, and they make that link in the paper. But the second link they make is this thing that it directly impacts your bottom line. Now, the FBA can't put a number to it, but at Asset Map, we've been doing research on this for more than a decade. Okay, and it's fascinating because the US, the guys easily get sued, so they're very particular how they do the research, and it's actually quite a lot of fun to see how they do it. They literally take teams of financial planners that are similar and same size of book, same age, etc. And they get the one to focus on advice engagement, and the other one just carries on. And it's amazing that consistently the guys that focus on advice engagement materially pushes up their income. Okay, so the number we quote is 38% on average. So on average, that is the increase in your revenue if you focus on engaging your clients in your financial planning process. Now, you might say, Benny, I don't trust your 38%. Okay, but let's just think about it. Look, so forget that 38%. Just think about it. If half of your A and B clients, so that's the clients that you earn your most income from, if more than half of them are not engaged, or flip it around, let's say we can shift it, that half of clients are engaged. Think about the additional referrals, how just things are going to work smoother. The clients are going to be advocates for you. So you think about that's flipping that around, that 50% become engaged clients. And then I don't even want to talk about C and D clients, because if more than half of our A and B clients are not engaged, it means our C and D clients, the number must clearly be worse. And so just think about, and again, because it's a process, it's more easy to engage the C and D clients. And so think about the benefit of that. If you can start engaging your C, and without taking time. So I'm not saying we must now regularly meet with them, but we've got to apply the principles of advice engagement to the C and D clients. And now you can start seeing why it directly impacts your bottom line. Okay, so I think this is really important. Now the question is, well, what is the problem here? Are we not good communicators? Like what causes this barrier or this disconnect? Okay, so that's what makes it so hard? And I think it sort of falls into two categories. The one part of the problem is us. Okay, so the way we engage our clients, and I'm going to talk to that about. I'm going to show you a few examples. We call them red flags. Okay, so see if any of these red flags pop up for your practice. And then the second component is the clients, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that if time permits. Let's just see. I might have to skip through that, but I want to just briefly touch on these 2 points. Okay. First red flag. Okay, 30-page financial plans. Okay, 10 pages of graphs. Okay, it is a complete turnoff. Okay, clients' attention span is very limited. Okay, so immediate red flag. Okay, you want to take the client through 30 pages, the client's going to switch off. Okay, next thing, complexity. Yes, absolutely. We, the experts, you must look at the complexity. But if we try and share the complexity with clients, okay, they shut down. Okay, it's overwhelming. They're not interested. They don't care. Because you do not try and train the clients to be CFPs or CFAs, even worse. Okay. Next thing, cash flow analysis, super important. Okay. But have you ever done a financial plan that worked out? But the answer is no. Life happens. And so yes, we need to do the cash flow analysis to give us comfort. But it doesn't give the client comfort because they know the projections aren't going to work out like we say it is going to work out. Okay, so be careful. Red flag. if we do that. Of course, jargon, we know, another red flag. All right. I just want to briefly touch on it because I'm not going to genuinely run out of time. Our clients are not rational. Okay, we know and I don't know if you're aware of this research, but more and more we get to realize the way we make decisions, we don't make them logically. We don't think it through and then decide how we feel about it. We make the decision first about how we feel about it, and it's instinctive, like in a millisecond. I feel this is the right thing for me. Then we sort of make it up. Like we make up the story to ourselves. We rationalize for ourselves afterwards with logical thought. Okay. So in other words, if we know this about clients, then we've got to think about how do we approach them. If we only approach them on the rational side, we're missing the way they make decisions. So we've got to engage them on that emotional level. And yes, I'm not saying don't do the numbers. Obviously, we need to do the numbers, but we've got to engage them on the emotional side. I'm going to just rush through these things now. Important, okay? And I'll give you a practical example of how we see things different. I'll get a very practical thing. We often will say something like, we need to review your will, let's say. And maybe I should ask you, if I say to you, let's review your will, is that clear to you what I mean? And I think most guys will, yeah, that's freaking obvious, okay? It's not obvious to clients when you say stuff like that. They don't know what it means to review a will. It's going to take 10 meetings, and they need to must involve their lawyer and the rest of the family. And so we should be very careful when we frame these things that we can see it like what we think, we mean, and what the clients think we mean are different. Again, client's attention span is measured now in seconds. I saw something, I think it was this morning or last night, they said no longer 20-second video clips, 10 seconds. I mean, that is crazy. 10 seconds to communicate your message. Okay, so it means we can't expect the client to read 30 pages plus. Okay, and then of course, bear this in mind. It's not there's research in the UK that clients would rather go and see their dentist than their financial planner. I mean, that is shocking. So in other words, remember, it's scary for clients, or at least for some clients. Okay, so let's wrap up, or maybe, okay, one more. Okay. When you think about the quality of the financial plan, you're going to rate it very technically, which areas did I cover, investments, insurance, estate, legacy, liquidity, whatever it is. That's how you're gonna measure the effectiveness of your advice. How does the client measure the effectiveness of your advice? Do you think they are rationally going to read through all of those things and they're going to make an informed decision whether that's a good financial plan or not? That is not how clients make decisions. Okay, it's something else. It's something else that makes that impact for them. All right. I'm going to end off here just with a few tips. Okay, because now the question is, well, what do we do now, Benny? Because this is a challenge, and it's not easy to solve. Because I think it starts with two things: a mindset and the action. Like in other words, we've got to think about it differently, and then we've got to act differently. Okay, so the first thing is, in our mindset, is we want to get to understand what our clients feel about their financial plan. Okay, so this is about what the clients feel, not the technical robustness of the financial plan. How do our clients feel about their finances? Okay, so stop thinking about, are you a good financial planner and you're doing 30 different things? How do my clients feel about their financial plan? And then we've got to start it from the client's perspective. I mean, especially on, because we're involved with practice management and all of those things, it's so easy to get sucked into all of the things that need to happen behind the scenes. CRM and marketing and planning and analysis and all of those clever things. And again, that's very, very important. Okay. What do you think your clients care? Do you think we know clients don't care about any of that stuff. What do they care about? Not your emails and newsletters. And again, that's important. What they care about is when they sit down with us, when we talk. That's the only thing they can base their experience on. And so start thinking about it. Your meetings. How do you conduct your meetings? And so I can skip through that. And our actions. What do we do? And please, the number one thing I've learned is let's be intentional. Don't make it up. Be like, if you go into a meeting, be very intentional. What value am I adding in this meeting? And then please, we've got to, and I know it's an effort. Many planners say, I'm not recapturing stuff. I'm not re-summarizing. I know we've got an instinctive dislike for this, but we call it writing the short letter. And I don't know if there's a saying, you can Google it. It says, I'm writing you a long letter because I don't have time to write you a short letter. And I think that's the trap we fall in all the time. We just churn out stuff. And if the computer can churn out the 40 pages, even better. We don't even have to look at it. We just send it to the client. It's not valuable. It might be valuable for you. It's not valuable for the client. We've got to take that information and do something with it. We've got to condense it and say, well, what is the essence? What are we looking at here? Again, every meeting, what is the value the client is getting from that meeting? And of course, when we build these systems and processes, we've got to design it for scalability. I see so many advisors, and they do fantastic PowerPoint presentations for every client, but it takes them hours to put it together and stuff. So that's also, I mean, it's certainly a step in the right direction, but it's not sustainable. Okay, so when we design these things and we build them, we've got to build it for scale. In other words, we can apply it every meeting, every time, for every client. Yeah, so let's end off there. I'm out of time. I'm sorry if I rushed a bit there in the middle bit. But what I want to say to you is start noticing the blind spot. How do we do it? I mean, we always say, are your clients leaning in on the meeting, or are they sitting back with their arms folded? So spot, if their eyes start glazing over, okay, you know the signs. In fact, I love the saying from the Americans that say, do not show up and throw up. If you find yourself showing up to the meeting and just splurging stuff, that is the blind spot. Don't do that. We're not presenting. We want the client to participate in the discussion. So cool. So thank you everybody for your time. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next sessions where we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the practical side. So how do we take this forward?
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Benny. Insightful session. You know, I think we don't often sit to think about this. We're so used to doing the things that we're doing in the way that we do it because it's our process and it works for us. And I think this is some really good food for thought, and just seeing how we can really do things. Yesterday I was looking at something where the guy was explaining, you know, instead of using these incredible like words and stuff, he said like we stopped learning to read at the age of like 9 or something. I think he said grade 5 or something like that. And ultimately what it boiled down to is that instead of using that, just say it in plain language. And I think this boils down to, you know, what are the things that clients really connect with? And we sometimes just forget that. When I experience this most is when you call your internet service provider or you submit a support ticket. Geez, these oaks talk to you in a language that's like, and I'm supposed to be able to speak tech, and they go, I'm like, okay, please can you just explain to me what that means? So it's such valuable information. Thank you very much. There's been quite a few comments, Benny, as well. Jesse is asking here, Benny, can you please give an example of a simple process that can be applied across all clients?
Yes, and so I'd say one of the very basic things is clients don't feel organized. It's sometimes clients with financial planners, 70% of them don't feel organized. So think about that simple process. How can we help our clients to feel organized. And it doesn't matter if you report 50 pages on the investment. That's not going to help them feel organized. And so I think that's the simplest thing to do, is start thinking about it. How can I help my clients to feel that their finances are in order, that they feel organized? That's probably the number one thing that people struggle with. And because what we also miss is that it changes. So if my finances are in order like 3 years ago, it doesn't mean it's in order today. And so it's something that clients need to continuously check back in. I felt organized a year ago or 2 years ago, but now things have changed. Now I don't feel organized. So I think that's probably the very simplest, most direct thing we can do, is think about, how do we help our clients to feel organized continuously? Not like every day, but like at least every time we check in with them. Do you feel organized? And of course, we can't just ask it like that. Do you feel organized? Because clients wouldn't know how to answer that. And so we've got to make it very real for them. I mean, the asset map ways we show them a picture. So this is your picture. Is it up to date? But I'd say that is the most basic thing to get right as a step one.
Yeah, and I think part to that is so that they know what is where, you know. So it's a picture of, this is what I've got, being organized from that point of view, but also, you know, where are my documents? Where do I get access to things? You know, I mean, like obviously the thing that comes to mind is when somebody passes away, there's so many documents that they want for winding up the estate, for example. And I think there's a few things that come with this that you've just shared. Maybe on the one hand, it is the, you know, just thinking about the, like organized from my things are in order. So that peace of mind that comes with that, but also the peace of mind that comes with, okay, the people that need to know where my things are, they know where my things are. So I think this is an important part that we sometimes forget, you know, and I think this is probably, Bennie, I don't know what your thoughts are. We still got 2 minutes. So do you think that this is something that actually is one of the reasons why clients don't sometimes want to engage with financial planners and advisors, because they feel unorganized and they feel like they don't know where their stuff is, and they seem not to be in control of that? Do you think that's a big reason?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many. I mean, you can talk about for a whole session just about the hurdles around how clients feel ashamed and about their finances, etc. But I want to make just one point, because I see a lot of advisors saying they've got life files. Okay, so that's excellent. That's really good. But again, that's only 50%. Okay, so you feeling the client's got a life file and you think the client is organized. We've got to do the next step and say to the client, you have a life file. Is it up to date? Has anything changed? Do we need to revisit any of the sections? So please, yeah, just do that second step. Don't just do it like you feel the client's organized. They must feel organized.
Yeah, fantastic. Bennie, thank you very much for a great session. Really enjoyed it. As I said, thought-provoking. Just also a reminder on one hand, and then on the other hand, just, you know, are we not like complicating things? And remember, this was the foundations of advice engagement. Bennie will build on this in the coming CBD sessions that's coming up later in the year. So Bennie, thank you very much to both you and Asset Map. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Frank.
Righty. Thanks, Bennie. So the next up, I'm going to end this webinar, and I'll see you back on session 2, where we have Luke Martins, and we're going to talk about retirement. So see you there. Thank you very much.
Cheers.